Prison Architect 2 will be coming out later this year, and because we know quite a lot about it so far, let me tell you everything that we know about it so far. So let me start with some general info. It's been developed by Double 11 with Paradox Interactive Publishing, and it's had 3 release dates so far. It was originally meant to release on the 26th of March, that was then delayed to the 7th of May, and then as of recently, it's now been delayed to September 3rd. The standard edition is going to be $34.99 in Great British Pounds, obviously that may differ to where you are for conversion, and the Warden's edition will be £41.99. The Warden's edition pack includes Captain Sanders, Royal Banks, the Professor Young, Nina Barros, the Warden's rug, the Warden's desk, and the Warden's wallpaper. They're all in relation to different sorts of characters that you can have with different pros and cons for perks, which was explained in a live stream of those sort of Warden Editions pack stuff. For the pre-order, you get the canine dog skin, so the Black Labrador Retriever, the German Shepherd, and the Malamute, and this content may be made purchasable individually at a later date, so bear that in mind if you are up for the pre-order. The most noticeable difference about Prison Architect 1 to Prison Architect 2 is it's gone from 2D to 3 dimensions, and it also includes multiple floors. There's also going to be unique inmates that have skins of their own, so they now form distinct relationships that influence behavior and make decisions based on wants and needs. I'll go into more detail about this a little bit later. And choices matter, so every choice you make might either help or hinder your prisoner's correctional journey. And there's going to be also a fresh new career mode, which I'll get to in a minute, which will get you across a brand new world map. Some objects that you build also may need to be researched to unlock first. Again, I'm going to go into more detail. There's also a completely revamped UI. Let's start with the career mode then that I've just mentioned. So in the career mode, you take a role as a fixer, and a CEO has hired you to fix a variety of issues for various different prisons. So take these as more levels or scenarios, different scenarios, and there's roughly going to be 18 of them. So early on, there's going to be a heavy focus on construction, and some of these scenarios will include you having to find escape tunnels, so a prison with a lot of escapees, and being loading into a prison mid-riot as well. And in comparison to Prison Architect 1, you have more of a presence in Prison Architect 2, as nothing is forced. You can go around the problem the way that you like and you want. You essentially run a company, and with the progression with expanding a company and staff, etc. So this progresses through a world map, and the career mode does act like a tutorial, but it's more about running a prison company and has some more structure over going into Sandbox. So if you want to learn and develop some of the things in Prison Architect and learn about how the systems work, career mode is probably the perfect sort of game mode for you to start with. Now with each scenario, they grant you cash bonuses, and this will go towards building your own prison. So you can choose a custom plot and build your own completely from scratch, and unlike the scenarios, these will have no set objectives or victory conditions. So it will be a little bit like Sandbox, but you invest your career money into it and unlock department perks from your career organization to grant you bonuses and advantages. And then you can also sell your prison at a later date for a profit and use that money to upgrade your organization and build a bigger and better one next time. For example, you could start a new prison with all 4 sections of bureaucracy unlocked, or have admin staff available right from the get-go. And that's relatively all we know about the career mode thus far. On the flip side, let's talk about the Sandbox mode, which is what everyone's probably used to if you've played Prison Architect 1. You load in, you change some settings, and that's what you go with. There's no objectives, it's your own. So what we know about it in terms of the menus, what you can change, in the new game menu, it's split into 3. You've got map, game, and mutators. Under map, you've got environment selection, where you can basically select your map. So you've got River Canyon, Desert Strait, Area 11, Long Island, Dockside District, City's Edge, Timberwood Valley, Lakeview, and Reservoir Pass. There's also a seed, which could mean you could copy it and send it to somebody so you can have the same seed. There's also the ability to randomize this seed as well, and you can also select how much water, dirt, dark grass, trees, rocks, and bushes there are in your map, and you can also randomize the entire thing of what I've just explained in its entirety. Under the game tab, which will be under the next bits, you have Warden and Guard selection, including randomization of that as well. You can also alter the difficulty, daily income, starting cash, and intake payments. There's also advanced settings that let you alter the bankruptcy, death, and escapes limits, and the riot takeover. So under the riot takeover, you've got things like a medium or a high, as an example. Under mutators, these will disable achievements. You'll be familiar with these if you've played Prison Architect 1. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but they're things like tireless workers, no failure, unlimited funds, auto water or electricity. Those sorts of things they can sort of give you a challenge or make things easier. It depends what it is. There's also another one that doesn't allow you to have the building time. They will instantly be built, essentially. Now let's talk about the UI menus when you are in a game. So on the bottom, you've got administration, construction, objects, management, staff, and prisoners. You've also got extra information at the bottom, like the prisoner and guard numbers, the cash, income, time controls, and the time and date. Now let's go into some of those tabs which do open up a lot of gameplay mechanics. So let's talk about the administration. So the administration menu is split into contracts, bureaucracy, legal, policies, needs, and finances. So under contracts, you've got main, repeatable, and milestone. So a main contract is just a one-off. Repeatable might be brought from a main one, so you might complete a main contract, and then it might become a repeatable. And they're basically what they say on the name. They're repeatable, but they don't give as much money or XP, but they can be done again and again and again, as it says in the name. Milestone, these are the achieving certain key moments in your prison, for example, a certain number of prisoners or a number of staff, etc. Now, how it's laid out is the list of contracts are on the left, the details are on the right once you've selected them, and those details have description, requirements, and rewards, and you can gain XP and funds from these contracts. Next, let's talk about the bureaucracy tab. So throughout this video, I will probably mention that certain things might need unlocking. And the bureaucracy tab is exactly what I'm referring to. And the bureaucracy is where you unlock features, upgrades, and objects for your prison, and it's unlocked via XP. To gain XP, you can complete contracts or employ admin staff to gain XP at the end of every day. And the number next to the XP bar is how many upgrades you have available, so how many points you have to spend. So the bureaucracy tree is split into 4 sections, and each upgrade is tiered. So you need to unlock the trees to progress and unlock all the upgrades. And that includes upgrading the trees themselves before you can spec into them. So white outline upgrades are available, full color unlocked, and grayed out are unavailable. So let's specifically talk about that tree. It's split into big business, which is more focused about saving money and reducing costs. You've got infrastructure, which is building a better prison. You've also got well-being, which is making life better for staff and prisoners. And then finally, we've got security. So under big business, that's your tier 1. On tier 2, you've got things like laundry, interest reduction, cooking the books, storage clearance, cheap materials, valuation. Under tier 3, you've got prison labor, larger loans, maximum security, legal defense. And under tier 4, you've got unqualified labor, tax relief, supermax security, larger intake, offshore tax haven. Now, under the second tree, the infrastructure, that's your tier 1. Your tier 2 is speed build, home decoration, seats and services, odds and ends, compact construction, comfortable living. Under tier 3, you've got gardening, building expansion, glass windows, painted doors, power grid, building embellishment, water delivery. And under tier 4, you've got landscaping, high-rise permit, and secure perimeter. Then we've got the third tree, the well-being tree, which is your tier 1. Under tier 2, you've got phone privileges, medical practice, prisoner, connections, shared cells, simple pleasures, and staff breaks. Under tier 3, you've got visitation rights, prison education, exercise essentials, measured diet, early release, rehabilitation, edutainment, fun, and games. And under tier 4, you've got exercise equipment and leisure center. Finally, under security, which is your tier 1, then your tier 2 is intelligence, surveillance, patrols, staff keys, lockdown, intake arrivals. Under tier 3, you've got filtered orders, gun license, guard dogs, stun guns, and body armor. And finally, for tier 4, you've got free fire, snipers, stun gun rollout. Majority of those you should be able to see what they are from the name. Some are a little bit not as clear, but that is all the bureaucracy tree. Moving on to the policies tab, this is split into prison-wide and punishment. So under prison-wide, you've got cell allocation, staff with keys, and parole. And the cell allocation is a tick box for empty cells or existing cells. Staff with keys is a tick box with doctor, worker, cook, janitor, admin staff. And you've also got parole, which is the percentage slide of how far through a sentence prisoners are eligible for parole. You've also got punishments, and these change the punishment for each action, and all punishments toggle, or there's custom if you want completely custom ones, and the toggle has extreme, strict, balanced, lenient, or lax. Under custom, you have misbehavior, punishment, which is the cell confinement, solitary confinement, etc., duration, and perform search, and you get to change each one of these. A few examples of these punishments is vandalism, escape attempt, assault, murder. There's a bunch more, but those are some examples. Policies will also be applied when you exit the admin menu, so while you're in it, it won't actually apply until you exit, and then some policies will also need to be unlocked via the bureaucracy. As for needs, this tab will tell you everything about the needs from your prison overall, your your prisoner needs, that is, and if needs aren't met, prisoners will get angry and will cause riots, attack staff, and destroy property. So there's essential, well-being, and enrichment, which are actually in the order of importance. So essential is something you need to give your prisoners every day, and in order to fulfill needs like this, you will need to make sure there is enough time allocated to it in the schedule and having access to the things that are needed to fulfill those needs. For example, they will need access to a canteen with enough time to eat. Well-being isn't a must-have, but contributes to overall happiness of prisoners, and privacy is another need, so giving them alone time in their cell is what you want to give them. Make sure it's not too cramped to fully fulfill the privacy needs. The freedom need can be fulfilled by allowing them a free time slot and space to move around the prison, which will help, as well as adding windows. The safety need can be fulfilled by making sure there are plenty of guards and keeping the peace while fights and deaths are rare. The enrichment needs are least important of all, but can benefit greatly, especially if you want to build a big prison. The social interaction need also helps with this, so make sure you've got time for them to communicate with other inmates, but also with friends and family, so that visitation right. And to really boost social, you need to add phone booths and visitation, as well as time for them to do that. As for comfort, having higher quality objects like places to sit and sleep will take care of this, but that will cost you more. Higher quality items can be unlocked as well. The recreation enrichment can fulfill multiple needs at once, from using things in the guard or common rooms like playing table tennis, watching TV, or listening to music, etc. You've also got reform for enrichment needs, and this includes prison labor, classes, training sessions, and this will help them transition back into society better. Under finances, you've got, in terms of the UI, you've got finances and valuation. So under the finances bit, you've got balance, finance graph, transactions, loans, future transactions. So your main income will be from the prisoner intake, and I'll talk about prisoner intake later. You will spend money on construction, objects, and paying staff. You can also complete contracts for funds. You can also take out loans, but need to unlock for you to access it. You can take out a $5,000 loan at a time. Loans will have a 10% interest for when you borrow, and the loan repayment is taken off every day. And you can manually repay a $5,000 loan at a time manually if you want to. You can also sell objects around the prison if you need the money. If you are negative by the end of the day, you have 72 hours to sort this out into the positive numbers. If you fail, your prison is shut down, where you can load a previous save or start a new prison. Let's move on to land expansion. So this needs unlocking through the bureaucracy tree, and the map is sort of split into a grid, and you can see how much it is and the area of the land. You can only buy plots adjacent to what you already own, and they get more expensive the more you buy and expand. Moving on to construction, the menu is split into structural, doors and windows, assigned rooms, utilities, wallpaper, floors, and quick build. Most of those should be familiar for those that have played Prison Architect 1. So under structural, you've got building, boundaries, stairs, and floors. Under building, it's basically you building is the main structure. Boundaries are things like fence, sheet fence, perimeter wall, hedge. Those last two do need unlocking. Under stairs, you've got stairs, stairwell, metal stairs, and metal stairwell. Under floors, you've got walkway, water, and gap. You also have access to buttons that will clone, store objects, sell objects, and demolition function as well. The foundations are automatically added when adding rooms, and you also have highlights of the walls with the dimensions of what you're creating when you're dragging, as well as floor foundations and roof segments, which will make the building considered indoors. If you know you want more than one floor, there is a floor lock toggle, and you will then draw the ground floor, then the second floor after. The roof segments do take time in construction, so it won't be a quick thing, and you can create walkways between buildings above ground without needing workers, staff, or prisoners to need to go to the ground floor. While the walkway tool only functions outdoors, the gap tool functions in a similar way, but indoors. And the gap tool removes sections of flooring of the above ground, so the upper floor could see the floor below. And in relation to this, although this is more of about the guards, it's also about construction as well. It's sort of a two-in-one. Guards actually have conical vision, so having these gaps means you can see below and respond to events happening in that lower floor if they are posted above, and guards can also shoot down as well if they are equipped with certain firearms, so you can make sure you have your own guard walkways and towers with both the gap and the walkway tools. This also means there is no longer a tower tool because you essentially create your own. Let's talk about doors and windows. So under doors, you've got the wooden door, jail door, lodge door, fence gate. Then you've got things that do need unlocking. Those are the ones that you have by default. So the green door, red door, grey door, reinforced door, and secret door. Doors can be configured individually to require keys to pass through them, so there's no more dedicated locked and unlocked door types. The jail doors are the only door that can have that setting on by default. If you have planned a doorway, that segment of the wall is open for workers to pass through, so workers don't get blocked off. Bear in mind, prisoners can also get through that as well, so bear that in mind when you're building a new door and make sure that they can't escape. Workers will also wait to construct doors last. As for windows, you have barred windows, wide barred windows, tall barred windows, large barred windows. Those are by default. What you do need to unlock later is framed window, window, large frame window, and wide window, and different window types can be used to satisfy prisoners' freedom need as well. As for utilities, you've got the power supply, the power grid, the water supply, and the water line, which is all in the sort of the UI. So under power grid, you've got the electrical cable and the fuse box. Under the water line, you've got the large pipes, small pipes, and the pipe column. And when building utilities, power stations will go further than in the first game, so they don't need upgrading or adding on as much as they used to. Power lines now work as before. You build lines from the power station to wherever they need to go. Fuse boxes are new and they work similar to switches. They allow you to control the power in an area of a prison. So instead of shutting down the entire power for the entire prison, you can select one area. Outside power objects like outdoor lights need a power line now connected to them, unlike in Prison Architect 1 where they didn't need to and they just worked by magic. The water lines now work the same way as electricity. They are now an area of effect instead of having to place pipes directly to an object one by one like you just had to do in Prison Architect 1. Small pipes are significantly less water range than Prison Architect 1, but also has a narrower area of effect, and small pipes need to be unlocked. And due to having floors, vertical pipes also exist, so you don't need to create a new water station on every floor. You can have them go up through the columns, which will create columns in your spaces. Now let's talk about assigned rooms. So you've got cells, main, and storage. Under cells, you've got holding cell, and solitary. Under main, you've got intake, kitchen, yard, shower, canteen, and office. Now those are by default. The ones that you need to unlock are staff room, infirmary, classroom, visitation, common room, morgue, parole, laundry, surveillance, kennel, and armory. Under storage, you've got deliveries, garbage, Xbox, and storage. And when you start, you'll have a predetermined areas of intake, deliveries, and garbage, and prisoners are immune to acting up, running away, anything that will get them into trouble basically while in the intake zone on the outside. So you don't need to worry when the prisoners are in that zone, they won't actually run away. There is an option to select an area fill to fill out an entire space within that area, and rooms do have dimensional requirements, but also can be lifted via unlocks. And this secure info view will tell you what rooms are secure, green is secure, red is not. And you can also assign a room in a common area like a shower area in a cell block when starting out. Finally, on to quick builds, it works the same and should be one for every room type preset, so all you need to do is basically just place it. And similarly, we also have clone tool, which is also back and works just as before. You basically select an area you want and you can build it somewhere else exactly like it's built, but this time it will actually copy across objects and utilities, which is super helpful. Moving on to objects. So under the menu, you've got essentials, enrichment, decorative, foliage, lights, security, and all with a search function as well. You've also got filters for non, A to Z, price in the area, which is basically the size of that object. Let's talk about some of the actual objects that you'll get. So under the essentials tab, I'm not going to go through everything because there is a lot, but I'm going to go through a wide variety here. So you've got bed, bunk bed, stool, chair, sofa, leather armchair, bleachers, bench, square table, serving table, prep surface, cooker, fridge, wide sink, sink and mirror, metal toilet, shower head, office desk, filing cabinet, telephone, water cooler, vending machine. As for enrichment objects, again, I'm going to go through a few of them, not all of them. There are more out there for you to have a look at. So there are bookshelf, easel, chess table, radio, TV, basketball hoop, gym mat, exercise bars, punch bag, tire wall, arcade machine, pool table, table tennis, weight bench, and double rack. And objects are either an aesthetic purpose, functional, or both. And some objects will fulfill needs like comfort, and different objects will have different levels of comfort, for example. And some objects will display any requirements. For example, there's one for the cooker. So that each cooker can create 25 servings in a set time, 2 hours, for example. Moving on to management. So the management menu is split into regime, room labor, permissions, deployment, patrols, or programs. So the regime is basically the schedule, and you can change what your prisoners do and when, and can be different for each security level. For example, minimum security and medium security could have different times when they eat if you wanted to. Prisoners will need time to travel to locations for needs to be met, so make sure having enough time for everything in the schedule is important. You select a security level and you can assign presets if you want to, so there's things like lenient, balanced, strict, and you can also copy from other security levels if you want them to have the same or alter them later. The schedule is also split into 2-hour blocks. You've got shower, mealtime, yard, cell time, free time, and sleep. For room labor, this is where you assign prisoners to work in the kitchen or the laundry. There are buttons to select who should work in a particular room, for example, prison laborer or janitors. They will need training beforehand to do in the kitchen. This does mean that they may have access to other contraband, which might cause issues. You can also assign rooms, prison labor via the room labor menu, and select a laundry room or kitchen. And this means you could also have separate kitchens for labor if you wanted to. For permissions, you can basically define who can use an area of the prison. So you've got shared, minimum security, medium security, mat security, super mat security, staff only, and staff and prisoners. Also has a reset all button. Some prisoners may see these permissions as guidelines rather than rules to make sure they are kept where they are supposed to be. As for deployment, this is where you assign security staff to regions. You've got, under the menu, you've got guards, enforcers, dog handlers, and snipers. I'll get to more into security staff a little bit later. There's also a clear button and remove all assignments button. As for the patrols bit, this is where you create routes and assign staff to them. So you draw patrols button for all the, and then you can also select the individual security staff. There's also a clear remove all routes and remove staff from all routes buttons. As for programs, which is the education and reform, so you've got basic education, higher education, kitchen safety, mindfulness, addiction therapy, and behavioral therapy. There's also a cancel all programs button if you want to. As for visitation, this will happen between 10 AM and 4 PM, and this can happen via a booth or a table. You will need a safe route for when your visitors, so they're separate from your prisoners. Programs cost money to run. They also need to be unlocked, and you'll need to assign a time and location for them to take place. In basic and higher education and kitchen safety, you need a classroom. Mindfulness, addiction therapy, and behavioral therapy, you need a common room. Free time are required to schedule for a program to run, and classroom-based programs are run by an external teacher, so you don't need to hire extra staff. The psychologist runs the program in the common rooms, and because of this, you can't book 2 of these programs at once, as you only have 1 person to run it. Moving on to security measures, this is located on the right-hand side of your screen after the prisoners tab. This is where the searches and shakedowns function is like in Prisoner Architect 1, and this time it's a radial menu. So what you have is inmate searches, which only searches inmates and cells. Prison search, and that's the entire prison, nothing uncovered. Dog search, that's search for contraband and tunnels. Bang up confines all prisoners to their cells. Lockdown locks all the doors in the prison. And emergencies, this calls emergency responders like riot squad or paramedics. No firefighters this time, however, which is interesting. Now, some of these you might want to use when dealing with riots. So let's talk about riots. So riots happen when enough prisoners feels their needs have been neglected for too long. There's a frustration meter next to the XP bar, and frustrated inmates are more likely to be violent. And during a riot, when you get a notification tell you how long and how many prisoners are involved. The status bar is your losing condition. Let it fill up and it's game over. Same with letting too many prisoners die. You can use a lawyer to get rid of the deaths per day for a price if you're getting close to a fail condition and locations highlighted red or where riots are happening. You can do a prison-wide lockdown or do a measured response to a single area. And the prisoner's goal during a riot is to take as much territory as possible. Your job is to prevent that. Taken over areas are red and will count even if one rioting prisoner is in that location with no guards to contest it. Areas will keep being in control until guards come to take it from them, even if the room is empty. Orange areas are where prisoners are attempting to take control but don't have it yet, and no colour means that area or room isn't being contested. I mentioned about paramedics and the riot squad in the radial menu, and there are 2 teams for each, and each team that you call in will cost you but are more effective at dealing with riots than the regular staff, so the doctors or the regular prisoner guards. When you waypoint a squad, they won't deal with things that are on the way to the waypoint, but will when they reach that waypoint. So if they walk past something and the waypoint isn't there, they won't deal with it. Prisoners also have health bars and critical icons to indicate their status, like being injured. Moving on to staff. In the staff menu, you've got workforce, security, and admin. Under workforce, you can hire workers, janitors, cooks, and doctors. Under security, you've got guards, dog handlers, enforcers, and snipers. Guards are armed with a voice and a baton. Dog handlers can detect contraband in tunnels, and enforcers are armed with firearms and protective gear, more for your aggressive and violent prisoners really, and snipers deal with threats from a distance and work best when stationed up high. And staff can be equipped with additional things like tasers and body armor, which does need unlocking through the bureaucracy tab. You can assign security staff by selecting what type of staff you want from the deployment menu and selecting a sector, and it will show via icons what staff are assigned to what areas. CCTV can also increase your security. You can make a surveillance room, assign some guards to it, and link cameras to the monitors just like in Prison Architect 1, means you don't need to patrol that area. CCTV will also make some prisoners feel suppressed when around them. As for admin, you can hire a warden, security chief, foreman, psychologist, accountant, and lawyer. And this will also display what workers you currently have, and some admin staff can generate XP for you. It can also grant you access to other tools, and the accountant allows you to view your finances, for example, and the security chief allows you to access to sector deployment. Staff will need to arrive via a bus, a little bit like the prisoners or workmen when they arrive, so they don't instantly appear like in Prison Architect 1. Moving on to prisoners, or the prisoners menu as well. That menu is split into the intake, or minimum sector, medium sector, maximum sector, and supermax. So intake, this determines how many prisoners are sent to your prison, and it's split into each security level, and you decide how many of each you want. So the intake settings, you've got arrival time, which needs unlocking, the repeat on-off toggle, and there's also an overfill on-off toggle. There's a save changes button, and it tells you how many are scheduled to arrive. You earn money for when prisoners arrive as well as each day that they remain, and you can see how much each security level will get you. As an example, minimum security will earn you $250 per intake and $50 per day, while Supermax will earn you $1,000 per intake and $250 per day. Once you've allocated how many prisoners you want, new prisoners will be sent. However, if no cells are available, none will be sent. You can override this, however, with the overfill option being selected to on in the intake settings. There's also a separate menu when you individually select a prisoner, as this is split into bio, needs, connections, and record. So under the bio, you've got an image, what security level, like medium sector for example, the description, the days until release, the total sentence, the status effects, and their traits. So for the needs, just like in Prison Architect 1, there's a status bar for each of them. Under essential, you've got toilet, food, sleep, and hygiene. For well-being, you've got exercise, safety, privacy, and freedom. And for enrichment, you've got social, comfort, recreation, and reform. Under connections, this is a list of close friends, acquaintances, rivals, and enemies. And clicking on a connection displays friendship level connection lengths and significant interactions. As for the record bit, this is basically the criminal record. So this will display percentage of parole eligibility, percentage of the sentence served, percentage of the chance of parole, also displays the programs and qualifications they have, and the event record. And the event record includes making friends and punishments as well. Talking of which, personality and relationships in Prison Architect 2. And prisoners can come with traits, and to see a prisoner's traits, you can select a prisoner, as explained through that bio tab, and traits can affect actions and behaviors. So a few examples of traits, but not all of them, are things like bored, loyal, fearless, escape artist, and destructive. All prisoners will have connections to others that they interact with, and you see each prisoner's connections, as I've just explained, in the prison selection menu. And the list of connections range on a friendship level from positive to negative. Prisoners who have similar traits and get along are likely to become friends. Prisoners who have different traits are likely to become rivals. They may even react negatively to each other, and enemies do tend to have altercations with each other. Significant interactions are noteworthy events when feeling towards each other's change, which, as I explained in this sort of events tab, which will get displayed. For example, when first meeting, they may have a positive reaction to another. So examples of these significant interactions are things like a first meeting is positive, had a chat is a positive, fought each other or had a disagreement, they are negative interactions. And negative interactions will affect the relationship level and may lead to having a conflict warning, and therefore they will go up and down based on these. And they might become acquaintances, they might become friends or close friends, or even go all the way down to enemies if they have way too many negative interactions. And that's it. That's everything we know about Prison Architect 2. I do recognize that this is a lot longer video than I would normally do. There was a lot for me to cover so far because they have covered a whole significant lot. If you did make it this far into the video, thank you very much. If you did find it helpful and like to see more content like this one, make sure you are subscribed. Let me know your thoughts on Prison Architect 2. Positive, negative, what are you feeling? What are you feeling like in comparison to Prison Architect 1? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I will continue to make further content on Prison Architect 2, so any new info that comes out, I will let you know all about it. As well as Prison Architect 2, I also cover racing and simulation games, all the latest patch notes and information, so if that interests you, stick around and I will see you in the next one. Take care.